My child, you felt something the moment this began to play. Not excitement, not curiosity. Something quieter and heavier than that. A recognition that sat in your chest before your mind had time to name it. And here you are, not by accident, not by a random click in a random moment. You are here because what heaven is uncovering today has been sealed inside the one place you were taught was the safest place in the world. Your family. And the truth that is coming out today is not small. It is not a general encouragement about patience and forgiveness. It is a specific truth about a specific dynamic that has been operating inside your home for your entire life. And that dynamic has cost you more than you have ever been allowed to say out loud. Stop what you are doing and receive this fully. Because what I am about to confirm is something you have carried alone for a very long time. Something you were made to feel was your own failure on. Something you tried to explain to people who looked at you with confusion because from the outside, your family looked fine. From the outside, they looked like family, fine. But you have always known what it felt like from the inside. And the inside is where you have been living every day of your life. You have always known. The knowing was not confusion. The knowing was not bitterness or ingratitude, or the self-centered lens they accused you of seeing through. The knowing was accurate. It was your spirit telling you the truth about what was happening to you in the place that was supposed to protect you most. And today, my child, heaven is giving that knowing a name. There is a moment that many chosen ones who carry this particular wound can identify. It is the moment before you ask for something, before you bring a need to the family, before you reach out and say, I am struggling, I need help. There is a pause. A brief, quiet calculation that happens in your chest before you let the words leave your mouth. An internal measuring of whether what you need is worth the cost of asking. Whether the need is legitimate enough. Whether you will be seen as a burden. Whether this will be the time they finally say out loud what you have always sensed they felt. That you are too much. That you require more than you deserve. That the others do not cause this kind of trouble. You know that pause. You have lived in that pause your whole life. And I am here today to tell you that the pause was not weakness. The pause was wisdom. It was your spirit protecting you from a dynamic that you understood long before your mind had language for it. Type I know that, boss. If this has been your experience in your own home, let me speak to you plainly about what I see, my child. Because you deserve plain speech. You deserve to have what you have always sensed confirmed in clear and direct language, not wrapped in qualifications that leave you wondering if you imagined it all. Can't. You carry something that this family never knew how to hold properly. A depth of feeling, a quality of conscience, a capacity to love with your whole heart that made you, from very early in your life, the one who felt everything most intensely, the one who noticed when something was wrong before anyone else did, or the one who could not simply go along with what was being presented if something underneath it felt untrue, the one who needed things to make sense, needed love to be consistent, who needed the words spoken in the house to match the actions lived in the house. These qualities were not defects, they were gifts. But in the particular environment you were placed in, they were treated as problems. Because a child who feels deeply is a child who notices discrepancies. And discrepancies are inconvenient for a family system that depends on everyone accepting the version of reality that is most comfortable for the people who benefit from it most. So what was actually sensitivity was labeled as oversensitivity. What was actually discernment was labeled as difficulty. What was actually a healthy need for consistent love was labeled as neediness. And the labels stuck, because when everyone around you agrees on a version of you, it becomes very hard to hold on to the real version. You began to wonder if they were right, if the problem was you, if you really were asking for too much by needing what every child deserves. And the cruelest part of this is that the very gifts that made you who you are, the depth of feeling, the need for things to be true, or the refusal to simply accept what did not align with what you could see, were the exact qualities that made you most visible as the one who would not go along quietly. A child who simply accepts does not require management. A child who feels and questions and notices requires constant management. And a family that needs its story to stay intact cannot afford a child who tells a different story just by existing. So they managed you. They managed your reputation within the family. They managed the amount of space your experience was allowed to take up. They managed the narrative of who you were and what your needs meant and why the way things were was acceptable and not something that needed to change. You were not asking for too much. You were asking for exactly what you deserved. And what you deserved was simply never given. Type 7777 if you have spent your whole life wondering if your needs were too big, or if the love around you was just too small. Now I want to speak clearly about who is at the center of this dynamic, because I will not leave it in the vague language of general family difficulties. This is not about a family that was imperfect in the ordinary ways. All families are imperfect. This is about a specific structure of favoritism and selective love that was built into the foundation of your home. From the beginning, your parents are at the center of this. Why? The people who were given the responsibility of seeing each child equally, of distributing love without condition, of never making a child feel that their place in the family had to be earned. They were the ones who built the hierarchy. They were the ones who decided, whether consciously or not, that some children in this home would be covered and some would be expected to cover themselves. And you were placed on the wrong side of that line, not because of anything you did, not because of any failure of character or behavior or effort, but because family systems that operate on favoritism need someone to carry the weight that the favored ones are protected from. They need a child who will be strong so the others can be fragile. They need a child who will give so the others can receive. They need a child whose needs can be minimized so that the needs of the preferred ones never go unmet. You were that child, and what was done to you was not accidental. It was structural. Let me now tell you specifically what they did, not in vague spiritual language, not in metaphor, but plainly, so that you can finally stop wondering whether what you lived was real. The first thing they did was make your love conditional, and their love conditional on two different sets of conditions. For your siblings, love was present simply because they existed. It did not have to be earned, performed, or proved. It arrived automatically and remained regardless of behavior. For you, love was transactional. It showed up most clearly when you were giving, helping, achieving, or making the family look good to people outside the home. When you stopped giving, when you struggled, when you needed instead of provided, the warmth shifted. It did not disappear dramatically. It cooled on. A subtle but unmistakable withdrawal that you learned to read from a very young age. You learned that the way to stay in good standing was to keep producing, keep helping, keep being the one who did not need. And so you gave, and gave, and gave. Not always because you wanted to, Sometimes because the cost of not giving was a cold that settled into the house and settled into you in ways you could not explain to anyone who had not felt it. The second thing they did was punish your boundaries with comparison. The moment you said no, the moment you set a limit, the moment you made a decision that prioritized your own well-being over what the family expected of you. That was when the comparison came. You were placed next to a sibling who never caused this kind of trouble. You were measured against someone who understood what family means. You were reminded, directly or indirectly, that your unwillingness to give without limit was a character flaw that the others did not share. The comparison was never accidental. It was deployed with precision, at exactly the moments when you were trying to hold a line, trying to establish that you were a person with needs of your own, or trying to say in whatever words you had available that you could not keep giving what was being taken. The comparison was designed to make you feel that the problem was your refusal, not their demand, and it worked. More times than you can count, it worked. You released the boundary. You gave what you did not have, and you told yourself it was love. But my child, love does not require you to disappear. The third thing they did was rewrite the history every time you tried to name it. This was the most damaging of the three, because it did not just take from you in the present. It reached back into the past and took from you there too. When you finally found the words to describe what you had experienced, when you gathered enough courage to say, "This is what happened to me in this family," the response was not acknowledgement. It was revision. You were told you were remembering incorrectly. You were told you were too sensitive to interpret things accurately, You were told that what you experienced as rejection was actually love expressed in a way you were too self-focused to recognize. And because the rest of the family had a different memory, a version that did not include your experience, you began to doubt your own account. The doubt was the point. A person who cannot trust their own memory cannot build a case. A person who cannot build a case cannot hold anyone accountable. And a family that is never held accountable never has to change. Type, "I lived this" if the third tactic just described something you have carried in silence. My child, I need to pause here, because there is something I must speak to directly before we go any further. Something that has done more damage than any of the three things I just described. Not the favoritism itself, not the conditional love itself, not even the rewriting of your history, but what all of those things together did to your relationship with your own perception. What they did to your ability to trust yourself. When you grow up in a house where your experience is consistently denied, where the version of events held by the majority is always presented as the accurate one, where your feelings are treated as symptoms of a flaw rather than as responses to a real situation, you do not just lose trust in the family, you lose trust in yourself. You begin to run every perception through an external filter before you allow yourself to believe it. You ask yourself, am I overreacting? Am I being fair? Am I seeing this clearly? Or am I seeing it through the lens of my own wounds? And the asking is so habitual by now that you do not even notice you are doing it. It happens automatically. The moment you feel something that contradicts the family's version of reality. You were not wrong. The discomfort you felt when love was withdrawn after you stopped giving was not oversensitivity. It was an accurate reading of what was happening. The loneliness you experienced in a house full of people was not ingratitude. It was the real experience of a child who was present but not truly received. The pain you felt when you watched your siblings receive what you were denied was not jealousy. It was the honest response of someone watching an injustice happen in slow motion over years and decades. The doubt that rose in you every time you tried to speak your experience was not a sign that you were wrong. It was the result of years of being told you were wrong by people who needed you to be wrong, so that they did not have to be accountable. Every single thing your spirit registered in that family was real. The unease was real. The loneliness was real. The exhaustion of giving without receiving was real. The grief of watching love distributed unequally in a house that was supposed to contain you all equally was real. You were not too sensitive. You were not too difficult. You were not too much. You were exactly the right amount. And the love around you was simply not enough to meet you there. You were not wrong. You were not wrong. You were not wrong. Now I want to tell you what is happening on the other side of this. Because heaven is already moving, and the movement has a direction. Galatians 6:7 says that whatever a person sows, that they will also reap. This is not a threat. It is a law, and it operates with precision regardless of whether the person doing the sowing is aware of it. Your family sowed a particular kind of seed in your life. The seed of love made conditional, of worth made dependent on usefulness, of belonging made contingent on compliance. That seed has been growing. And the harvest of that seed is beginning to arrive in their lives right now. Not through drama, not through confrontation, but through the slow and undeniable logic of a law that does not make exceptions. I have already begun the exposure. Not the kind that requires an argument or a confrontation, or a moment where everyone gathers and the truth is spoken at last. The kind that works from the inside of a situation, outward. The family dynamic that held its shape for so long by keeping you in your assigned role is beginning to show the strain of that role being vacated. The system that ran on your giving is discovering what it costs to operate without that input. The people who told the story of this family in a way that excluded your experience are finding that the story has gaps that are becoming visible to people outside the family. Questions are being asked that they do not have comfortable answers to. The image that was maintained so carefully is developing cracks that their usual tools cannot seal. And the favored ones, the siblings who were covered while you were expected to cover yourself, are beginning to encounter the weight of a life that was never required to build its own strength. What was protected from difficulty cannot handle difficulty when it finally arrives. What was given without being earned cannot sustain itself when the giving stops. The very thing that looked like advantage is revealing itself as a fragility that was always there, hidden beneath the shelter of favoritism. They are not equipped for what ordinary life requires of ordinary people, and the people around them are beginning to see it. The parents who built this system are facing something they did not anticipate. The child who was supposed to always be available, always be strong, always absorb what the family needed, and never demand reciprocity. That child is no longer playing that role. And without that role being filled, the balance they arranged their family around is unstable. They are not yet ready to examine what that means. But the examination is coming, because heaven does not allow borrowed balance to hold indefinitely. This is not something you need to accelerate. This is not something you need to manage or monitor or involve yourself in. The exposure is heaven's assignment, not yours. Your assignment in this season is something entirely different. If this message is landing in a place that has needed these words for a very long time, I want to invite you to sow a seed into this ministry. Every word spoken here was crafted to reach chosen ones who are carrying exactly this wound, who need to know that what they experienced was real, and that heaven sees it. Visit the link in the description below, or scan the QR code on your screen to sow your seed, and watch what the Creator returns to you, pressed down, shaken together, and overflowing. Type "I sow" into my healing if you are ready to invest in the season that is coming. Let me speak now about what is opening for you, because the story does not end with what is being exposed. The story moves from exposure into something your family never prepared you to receive: genuine, unconditional, freely given belonging. Psalm 68:6 says that God sets the lonely in families, not in the family you were born into, in the family you were meant to have. The one that is built not on blood and obligation, but on recognition and choice. The one where your presence is not a transaction, where your needs do not need to be minimized before they are considered, where you do not have to calculate the cost of asking for help before you allow yourself to ask. The first thing that is opening is a circle of people who see you accurately, not the version of you that the family constructed to explain the dynamic, not the difficult one, or the sensitive one, or the one who could never just be grateful. The actual you, the one who gave so generously for so long that the giving became invisible. The one who carried the weight without complaint until the weight became too much to hide. The one who loved a family that did not know how to love back in equal measure, and who somehow kept their heart open anyway. Those people are coming. Some of them are already in your life, in a form you have not fully recognized yet. Others are approaching through paths that are being prepared right now. The second thing that is opening is permission. Permission you have been waiting for your whole life, without knowing that waiting for it was the problem. Permission to need without apologizing. Permission to receive without immediately calculating how to repay. Permission to be in a relationship where the exchange is balanced rather than one direction. This permission is not going to come from your family. It was never going to come from your family. It is coming from heaven directly, and it is arriving in this moment, in these words, in the quiet knowing that is settling in your spirit right now, that you were never the problem. The third thing that is opening is your voice. The voice that was trained to stay quiet, to soften, to qualify, to make space for the family's version before asserting your own. That voice is finding its full register. You are going to discover that when you speak your experience in environments that are safe, it lands differently than it ever did in the family. People believe you. People receive what you say without immediately reframing it to protect themselves. People thank you for saying what you said, because it named something they were also carrying. Your voice, fully used, is one of the most significant things you carry, and the family's need to silence. It was not a coincidence. It was because they understood, at whatever level of awareness people operate on when they protect themselves, that a chosen one with a full voice is a chosen one who cannot be controlled. Type "My voice is mine" if you are ready to use it without asking permission. And my child, I want to speak to the grief, because what is being uncovered today does not arrive without pain attached to it. When you finally allow yourself to see clearly what the dynamic was, the first thing that often rises is not relief. It is mourning. Mourning for the childhood you deserved, but did not have. Mourning for the parent who saw you fully and never looked away, who you never had. Mourning for the sibling relationship that could have been a source of strength and was instead a source of comparison and competition. Mourning for the version of the family you believed in or hoped for, long after the evidence suggested you should stop hoping. That grief is real, and it deserves to be honored. It deserves more than the few moments you have probably allowed yourself to give it, because you were trained early not to dwell in your own pain, trained to move on, to be grateful for what you had, to focus on what was good and not on what was missing. But the grief of a childhood that did not hold you properly is not self-pity. It is the honest acknowledgement of a real loss. And real losses deserve to be grieved properly before they can be released properly. Let yourself grieve the parent who should have seen you and looked away instead. Let yourself grieve the sibling relationship that was built on comparison rather than companionship. Let yourself grieve the version of belonging you believed in for so long. The version where your family would eventually understand, eventually recognize what had happened, why, eventually come to you with accountability and the kind of love that cost them something. Let yourself grieve that version, because it was not coming on, and holding on to the hope of it kept you in a position of waiting that took years from your forward movement. Isaiah 61:3 says that God will give beauty for ashes, the oil of joy for mourning, the garment of praise for the spirit of heaviness, not instead of the grief, after it, through it. The beauty does not bypass the ashes. It transforms them. What you grieve, you release. What you release, heaven can fill with something that actually fits the space it occupies. The family dynamic that held the space that belonged to real belonging is clearing. And what is moving in to take its place is not a substitute. It is the original, the genuine article. The belonging that was written for you before the family you were born into made you believe you had to earn it. Before I speak the final blessing over you, I want to invite you to sow a seed into this ministry. If these words gave language to something you have carried for years, without being able to name it, consider sowing a seed into this ministry. Every seed sown here reaches another chosen one, sitting in the exact wound you were just sitting in. Visit the link in the description below, or scan the QR code on your screen to plant your seed today. Type "seed planted" if you are sowing in faith for what is coming. My child, or in the name of the Most High, I declare this over you now. The dynamic that told you that you were too much is being dismantled. The system that ran on your giving without returning is being exposed for exactly what it was. The labels placed on you by people who needed you to be the problem are falling away from your identity. and returning to the people who created them. What was taken from you in the years of giving without receiving is being restored, not as a return to the same table where you went hungry, as a new table, a table where the food is plentiful and the welcome is genuine, and the belonging does not have conditions printed on the back. Romans 8:28 says that all things work together for good, for those who love God and are called according to his purpose. All things, including the years in a family that did not know how to love you correctly, including the loneliness of being surrounded by people who could not see you, including the giving that emptied you, including the silence you were pressured into. All of it is being woven into something that will make sense from the other side. And the other side is where you are headed. You are not the surplus child. You are not the difficult one. You are not the one who asked for too much. You are a chosen one who was placed in a refining fire and came through it with your heart still open and your spirit still reaching toward what is true. That is not ordinary. That is remarkable. And what heaven has prepared for someone with that level of faithfulness is not ordinary either. Walk forward, my child, not looking back at the table where you went hungry. Walk toward the table that has been set for you. It is closer than you think, and everyone seated at it is expecting you. Type "I am not too much" if you receive this truth with your whole heart. Amen.